everybody, I'm Maximum Panic, this is Raine, and that's Twy, and welcome back to Imagine with Max, the SPEEDPAINT segment show in which we muse about our original characters and what they'd be like in different settings and stories.
We're here!
So
Raine will join eventually.
Raine probably took a danger nap.
Yes, Raine took a danger nap. He's fine. Everything's fine. I'm not putting away, like, the bat I used to trip him before I got here. And you know what? Everything's fine.
Yeah.
So, Manic, you wanna open up with a little explanation of what's going on here?
Yeah, so far we've dipped our pinky toes into stories such as Bleach, Pokemon, Ruby, and a magical girl story of our own making. So today, we're taking a look at a new story idea that we've conjured up this year that, while carrying plenty of comedic and romantic undertones, is a full-blown post-apocalyptic, if not dystopian sci-fi setting. If you saw the video thumbnail and it caught your eye, then I think you know what kind of story that we're discussing today. The best way that you'll know it is the Godzilla universe, known more recently as the Monsterverse, and a world generally inhabited by KAIJU, which is the name given to these titan-sized monsters. Mind you, the three of us are just casual fans of the idea as opposed to die-hard fans, so we're doing this just to have some fun. So please, for the love of God, don't rig us over the coals, okay? It's something we haven't really done before, but it was just rife with like new opportunities for us, like writing-wise, or just
and
like...
also, like, a more, like, we do some serious and dramatic stuff, but this kind of hits both moods, like action movie level stuff that we don't normally write or play around with.
Yeah, we do that a lot, we just don't show you guys. We're here to entertain you, not bum you out.
We have so many documents. It's fine.
Honestly, I'm not even sure how the hell this whole thing even started. Maybe it was because of like a doodle I did at some point earlier this year, but yeah, I just fucking ran with it.
I know how it started, but I don't know if I want to out you on camera.
No, please, go ahead.
You drew a picture of a hot female Godzilla, and then...
It all just spiraled from there.
That was literally it. You were like, guys, I made this, and we were like, ooh.
I didn't want to write stuff just because, like, you know, it was hot and pretty. I was like, okay, if I'm gonna write anything, I need a backstory, I need a universe, I need context. And then we were like, let's make another AU for it, why not?
Let's just go off, absolutely, without hesitation. And we did, because we can't just have a concept, we have to have a whole world for it. Because our brains. Really quickly, to just give you the roughest breakdown on this beautiful world we've created and are still in the process of creating.
Take the word just beautiful with a grain of salt, by the way.
Oh god. The year as Hime, Manic. Hime. I mean, you know I call her Hime. Whatever, you guys understand.
She's the only one allowed to call me Hime, by the way. The rest of you ain't got that privilege.
Yeah, me and Raine.
Yeah.
So, like she said, the year's 2099, but in this world, kaiju roam the earth.
In the year 1954, almost a decade after the detonation of the nuclear bombs that ended World War II, scientists started receiving reports of unusual, oversized animals raising hell on the coast of Japan. And of course, that raised a whole bunch of red flags, and people were like, guys, I don't got a good feeling about this. Early discovery of these monsters, now called the kaiju, forced humanity's greatest minds to begin preparation for an inevitable doomsday-like event in which the kaiju would rise up and claim the earth back from humanity. They worked in secret and ultimately began construction on a series of doomsday shelters in 7 undisclosed locations around the world, places they could evacuate tens of millions of people should the day ever arrive. The 7 strongholds, by the way, are located on each of the 7 continents, and each one specializes in developing the goods and the technology to both take down the kaiju as well as keep humanity's evolution and legacy alive. The 7 in question are Avalon, Cape Town, Buenos Aires, Sydney, Shining, Stockholm, and Osaka. It's not necessarily that these strongholds are the cities that they were named after. A few are, kind of, but the general consensus was that they were dubs the code names previously used by the 7 scientists who headed the original counter-kaiju task force back in the mid-1900s. So it was kind of like a nice little way to like show some unity for the world population, like somehow coming together for a common cause. For once in humanity's history.
You know, you can really bring people together when the entire world is destroyed by a bunch of giant monsters.
You really can. You really can.
In spite of all that hard work, 5.3 billion lives were still lost in that uprising, with every single country kind of like drowning under that onslaught. One military company managed to come up with the means to combat kaiju. So every country tried to employ them, but they were stretched too thin. So instead, the 7 strongholds just came together, supplying them with resources, funds, everything they needed to. Let me make it clear. Kaiju, you know, they're fucking big, they're really hard to fight, and here that was true. but what would later become known is first called the KAIJU International Life Leveling Entity Regulation, or KILLER, the first people to develop the technology necessary, and they absolutely milked that to get what they needed and become what they are today, which is 200,000 people strong and the one and only KAIJU task force across the entire globe.
Okay, so they're basically like humanity's first choice to kill the kaiju, also their last resort should, shit go down in that regard, but basically the kinds of weaponry that they developed, because humanity found out the hard way that bullets and RPGs and actual bombs were not enough to take down some of these kaiju because, they kind of fit off that whole radioactive energy and the fallout that happened because of these weapons. So I don't think I ever really discussed this too deeply, but it was basically Shining, this one city in China where this one stronghold was, but they were kind of the ones who developed the weaponry in the first place, which in my head, I kind of like akin to customizable like plasma energy, so it's kind of like a more grounded, slightly more practical version of a lightsaber.
I don't think you've audibly said that yet, and that's the best thing ever.
I know.
I love it so much.
The closest thing humanity will ever get to a kyber crystal.
I just want Star Wars!
I know. Okay, so here's the thing. These high-tech plasma energy-like weapons I designed for this universe aren't exactly plasma-based. As cool as that sounds, it just doesn't sound too practical when trying to cut down kaiju whose exteriors are invincible to bullets and RPGs. So we came up with a better idea that may or may not have taken inspiration from Death Stranding. During the uprising, known to most people now as the Fall, several lucky survivors in China discovered an element in the Earth's crust that, while initially appearing dormant, did this cool little trick where it lit up bright red when superheated and, to their shock, could rip right through a kaiju's skin and bones. Maybe it was discovered during one of the many kaiju attacks that destroyed countless cities, but the founders of Killer found a way to control this strange new element and turn it into the super awesome futuristic weapons that Killer operatives have been using since 2038. The name of this element? Well, we call it Gammaronite. They do have like actual like plasma swords. They've got things like those. They've got actual like dual axes, which is what my character Videl wields in this case. They've got hammers, I'm sure. They've got actual whips. Some people use the plasma kind of like piano wire in a sense, which actually comes in much more handy than you'd think, but it is very hard to control and some people have absolutely killed themselves trying to master it.
If any of you have ever heard of monomolecular wire, that is a close adjacent to trying to use piano wire plasma. Yeah.
So, I'm sure one of the first questions popping into your head right about now is, what has Godzilla got to do with all this? In this universe in particular, they came to the consensus that Godzilla actually headed the whole kaiju revolution that killed most of humanity in the first place. King Give This Bitch an Atomic Breath Mint is responsible for the downfall of many, many cities, if not whole countries in this case, including Eastern China, coastal Japan, South Korea, North Korea, Hong Kong, the Indonesian islands, and the United States West Coast.
Nobody knows where he is.
Yeah,
which is a problem.
Apparently he hasn't been seen anywhere worldwide for the last 15 years, and people think that either he just up and died, or maybe he went into another million-year hibernation kind of thing. So, it's really kind of open-ended in that case, but we'll find out about that eventually. And who's to say
anyway.
Anyways.
That sums up our setting. So, the task force?
Killer is the reason that, like, the story is happening the way it is, because at this point, they're, like, not just the military power of its own, maybe even a world leader on its own if it so wanted to be, but instead of per se wanting to go to college after they graduate high school, a lot of them started enrolling in their country's local militaries and shit, because most of them did want to train to become members of Killer in that regard, or at least fight to take down the kaiju that so ruins their ways of life in the past.
Yeah, Killers is the only mercenary company that, which is a real thing, there are actual real-life mercenary companies, this is not a fictional thing, that managed to create the technology to combat kaiju and sustain themselves. They're not controlled, actually. Despite the status of the strongholds, they've managed to remain independent. They are employed by all of them and create a united front together. But they are still technically individual due to the state of the world. Kind of like, this is a cooperative agreement. Yeah. None of these control the other, because it would probably be really bad if they did.
Yeah, they basically made the strongholds their bitches.
That about sums it up, to be honest.
Avalon is like their primary bitch, honestly.
And Avalon has a lot of interesting players politically.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to the strongholds as well as like who manages them or how they're looked after, but I think that's a discussion for maybe a different.
Yeah. definitely. Yeah, so technically speaking, Killer's forces, it's not necessarily that as a total they have like 200,000 strong, it's that they have 200,000 soldiers like raring and ready to fight, whereas like they probably have like an extra, what, 20-30% is like their actual like, you know, personnel, their management staff, their executives and everything, which is like a nice blend of like people who actually run the company, own the company, shares of it, whatever, or people who manage like customer complaints and everything, people who manage relationships between the strongholds, because kind of an important factor there when you're trying to collectively fight the kaiju worldwide. So the thing is, lots of people try to obtain contracts in order to fight for Killer, but the company is very, very selective about the soldiers that they recruit, because they want to ensure that they've hired the best of the best and those who can actually hunt down and kill the kaiju so that they're not just tossing sacrificial lambs to the wind, you know?
Yeah, useful bodies, not just cannon fodder.
Exactly, because this is a world where people actually value the individual.
Especially when the individual is a very limited resource when they can get slaughtered by giant monsters.
Exactly. One of those cases where the ends do not justify the means, per se. When people actually do join Killer, or even if they're performing in a military squadron outside of Killer for that matter, is that Killer has recognized over the decades that some people just naturally perform better at slaying kaiju than others, and this is why for each of the 7 strongholds where there is a Killer base set up, they each have an Elite 4 squadron, you know, just honestly better at the jobs they do. Like, they'd probably have like a 99% efficiency rate if we're just really mulling it over there. People who have absolutely dedicated their whole lives to fighting and taking down the kaiju and absolutely pull no punches.
Yeah, it's very Pacific Rim in the sense that there are definitely specific people who can handle the kaiju. Not so much because of aptitude in this case, we're not getting into giant robots, but like, you know, some people can meet expectations and do the thing and other people can't, and you know, you just have to kind of live with that.
Yeah, exactly. One of the, well, actually, should I segue into characters at this point?
Yeah, I think this is a good segue point, honestly.
Yeah, okay, so, one thing I didn't mention is that we have a lot of new characters to introduce you guys to.
Yeah, the core 4 are somewhere around here, but they're not...
Shockingly, they're not front and center for once.
There are characters who can drive the plot forward more than the others, and we kind of each have a primary 2 that we're running with for that.
Yeah,
especially because they tend to occupy critical political positions as well as just generally, you know, being there.
Big time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of my characters make up a whole squadron by themselves. Because I wanted to try and take an opportunity to try and write on my own and not have to rely on my friends' characters for once. I will say primarily that this story that we've written, or at least the first arc of it, does primarily take place in the Osaka stronghold in Japan, and for damn good reason. You'll find out why in a little bit.
Don't worry about it. Everything's fine.
Yeah, don't worry about it. But my primary squadron is made up of at least 6 of my characters and then like 1 of Raine's characters, but you know what? That can wait for later. If and when he ever wakes up. Okay, so I have 6 characters here, one of whom you've already met in the Magical Girl videos. My character, Mari. She's not really as sweet as she sounds, by the way.
Sweeter. It's just that sweetness can also stab you.
Yeah. So, my character Mari, full name Marissa Honeybell, is a resident of the Stockholm stronghold who grew up surrounded by medical personnel, and to put it mildly, was born in a life of servitude to the injured. She's one of those people who try to see the best in others even when it might not be there, and despite having been let down on more than one occasion, she retained her optimism that a day would come where kaiju would be a thing of the past. But not without we're gonna get there first, obviously. Having experienced her fair share of nightmares about the kaiju one day destroying her home, she made it her purpose to help give humanity a fighting chance by healing the sick and wounded on the battlefield who were responsible for taking down the kaiju. So she threw herself into her medical studies and after graduating high school, gradually gained a thorough understanding of the human body. For her thesis, she actually wrote an essay on the study of nanotechnology and how to effectively accelerate the healing process for operatives on the battlefield without the need to call an evac. Basically, a way to give them an extra fighting chance without getting torn limb from limb pretty early on anyways. So she's one of the few people who were actually responsible for accelerating that field years ahead of its time. Not to mention, and she was waiting to surprise her teammates with this, Mari is so far the only person in the Stockholm stronghold who actually mastered the art of wielding monomolecular wire. You know, the thing that looks like piano wire on steroids. She is a force to be reckoned with that weapon, and you don't want to fuck with her when she's angry. Oh, and this goes without saying, she actually has a British-French heritage, so Mari here actually has a British accent. She can be sweet, but she will absolutely whoop your ass when she needs to. And then you've got a couple other characters I have not introduced yet, but I'm very happy to. One of whom is Parker DeWitt, one of my POC characters, actually. He is a very sweet, somewhat clueless boy, actually a little bit pampered, too. He was kind of raised, spoiled in the Cape Town stronghold. So he, like, grew up with this kind of, like, whole, like, fantasized version of what the world is actually like. He thought that, like, joining Killer was gonna be, you know, super glamorous, he got tons of recognition, but he got a cold hard slap of reality when he woke up the next morning.
How did he make it into the program?
I don't know. I think living in the fantasy honestly helped him, like, just stay, like, focused in the zone that he was in when he was, like, fighting, or at least taking the initiation tests.
So he's like Vice, like, he's definitely made for this, but he's just also kind of a spoiled
Yeah.
brat.
He is absolutely the type to fight kaiju while he's got, like, a pair of AirPods in his ears.
Amazing. I love the vibes here.
A fun fact about Parker, actually, his parents and grandparents by extension were both from Kenya and Madagascar. Therefore, the guy's actually multilingual, so he can speak both English, Afrikaans, and French. But primarily, he speaks with a British accent. The other thing about, well, actually, this kind of feeds into him, but the thing about the Cape Town stronghold is that it's considered to be the most peaceful stronghold in the world, with the lowest concentration of kaiju than anywhere else. And because of that, they have more of a freedom to focus on, like, the cultural and performing arts down there. And this is, like, on the southern coast of Africa, by the way, just if we're, like, talking geographical reference.
Yeah.
So they don't necessarily have to work as hard or as laboriously as, like, Avalon and Osaka do. He never really, like, had it explained to him just how bad kaiju actually are, and the fact that people actually do die when they face these things, because not a lot of people from Cape Town actually go off to join Killer and fight the kaiju, but the few who actually do, the stories are spun so that they died heroes, even though they may have just been fucking cowards, honestly, but nobody really questions it that much. Or it's that the few who actually went off actually came back and, you know, they're healed by their stronghold as, like, heroes and shit, you know?
Yeah, like, propaganda. You have to convince people to keep fighting giant monsters somehow, and this is just one of the ways.
Yeah, but that's Parker in a nutshell. Next character actually is my Australian boy, Toriander O'Hara. Curly top, blonde boy, probably doesn't really know the meaning of the word fear or caution, honestly.
Oh gosh.
Ironically, he is the aviation expert, so he, like, actually learned how to fly, like, fighter jets and shit. He's just pulling no punches when he gets into one of those things and just takes off flying, honestly.
Amazing. Terrifying.
I
Give
know.
him the keys, though. He can get you out.
I know. He's your best friend and also your worst nightmare. And he's wonderful. It's the kind of person you say, I love you, but you will never, ever in a million years ever be allowed to drive my car.
Yeah, just don't fucking touch it. You're fine. Put down the key.
just be the precious little boy you are. He's like the kind of guy who, when he goes to a new place, he's like, no. You want to make a good impression? You gotta dick the biggest one there. Show them that you're tough, that you mean business. That's how you make a lasting impression. It's the same logic as when you go to prison. Hit the biggest guy there.
Please, sir, you are but a bean.
I think it's that fearlessness that made Killer realize he's a very valuable asset.
Oh my gosh. Help him.
By the way, in case you were curious, there is a reason that Toriander was kind of hoisted onto this elite force in progress, and that is because he's something of a Tasmanian devil where he's from. Not only was he kind of an aviation expert, but instead of kind of grounding him for life and therefore eliminating one of the best aerial killer operatives they've ever had, they decided to just pass him off to another stronghold so they could deal with the problem there.
Please help him. The problem's the biggest thing there. Really is the biggest thing there. Please don't hit her. She will break you.
Yeah. Oh, man. And one of the few people who's actually trying to keep him in line while he's on duty is another very precious boy of mine who's actually been around for over a decade now. Tori Thane, original name Toru Kurosaki, is actually the older brother of my character Hazel from the Core 4.
Yay, Tori!
Lovely
He's been
boy.
through so much shit.
He really has. The thing about Tori Thane is that he's always been kind of a model student. He maintained straight A's in high school, went out for different sports teams, and more than once earned the title of MVP. He treated everybody around him with kindness because while he believed that humanity was on the brink of extinction, chivalry wasn't. However, he was also a born soldier, so he spent most of his life conditioning his mind and body to one day take down the kaiju. Tori, like Videl, is from the Avalon stronghold, so they have the same American accent here. After a kaiju attack nearly destroyed their family home, it left his younger sister Hazel with lifelong injuries, including vision loss in one eye and some serious PTSD that would take a lot of therapy sessions to get over. Therefore, he joins Killer with a newfound purpose to take down the kaiju and make the world a safer place so his family could have a peaceful life down the road. So he's doing all this for good intentions. It's just hard to remember that he's doing it for good intentions the more that his teammates are pressing his buttons.
See, everything is fine. Don't worry about it. They're besties.
So you think. Him and his second in command definitely have some choice words for each other, but that's the whole thing there.
Yeah, that's a whole thing.
Yeah. I will say prominently at first that, like, the only person on this team who's actually trying to keep all these people best in line as best she possibly can, no matter how sick of their shit she actually is and would rather just prefer to go take a nap in the break room, that would be my lovely lady Videl Striker. If that name sounds vaguely familiar, it might be because she briefly appeared in the Magical Girl Take 2 Speed Paint, where I elaborated on a whole situation where magical girls came back from the dead. Here she is taking the front and center stage. So Videl Striker is 29 years old, and all of her life she has been surrounded by very military-esque standards. Basically, her mother was once the bearer of the Medal of Freedom, and her father earns the Medal of Honor. She really didn't have any intention of pursuing a military lifestyle. It may be that originally she actually wanted to be like a physical trainer or maybe an artist or something, but that all unfortunately changed when she was about 14 and she witnessed her father's jet take down a kaiju at the cost of his own life. Obviously, she was very shaken up by this tragedy, but her mother was more so affected, fell into a very deep depressive state, became heavily alcohol dependent, and therefore Videl unfortunately had to take the role that her mother should have taken, and it was through that phase of her life that Videl realized she did not want to do this for the rest of her life. Now the idea of actually joining the military to fight the kaiju sounded pretty interesting, so as soon as she graduated high school, she got the hell out of there, she enrolled in the military. By the time she was 22 years old, she was the top performing soldier in her unit, and she was promoted to Delta Force, which is like the creme de la creme of the US military. When she was about 26 years old, so 4 years into her service with Delta Force, she received a personal invitation to join one of Killer's Elite Force squadrons, in this case being Elite Force Avalon. So Videl was recruited to join them, and she has happily been a member of that team ever since. You know, she's not necessarily like, you know, the top ranked of her squad or anything, but she is definitely a, how do I put this? A designated driver kind of character. As in, like, she's usually the one to clean up their mess, either paperwork-wise or if they go out for a drink or some shit. She's usually the one to make sure that everything stays in line the way it's supposed to be.
She's the one with the brain.
Yeah.
Head is not completely empty.
She's the one who tries to make sure that they at least look presentable for their inspection days and everything. Okay.
She's up there, and she's got not just the skills, but also the public presence and management ability to also work on above level than other than just point and shoot.
Exactly. And one of the big determinants of, like, you know, just judging how well a killer operative does in their job is something called a KBC, or a Kaiju body count. Basically, she has ranked up a KBC or a Kaiju body count of 71 Kaiju in the 3 years that she's been with Killer. Her claim to fame is that she was the one responsible for striking down a 100-foot tall mountain-type Kaiju, responsible for the destruction of Avalon's outpost colony in Denver, Colorado.
A very big boy.
I know.
Who is very dead now.
Shockingly,
which is almost a shame if you think about it.
I know. Shockingly not the biggest boy, but he's pretty up there.
Big boy.
Yeah, so that definitely earned her some credit, and she's now at least widely respected in that regard, or at least somebody who could be a viable leader if for some reason her actual leader can't. Which unfortunately turned out to be the case with their EF Avalon's final mission. Mind you, this is part of the prologue, so I'm just gonna explain at least that little bit. Or at least the plot twist that'll kind of feed into everything else here. But yeah, so Videl Striker was a serving officer of Elite Force Avalon at the start of the prologue of this story. Yeah, we're getting into the heavy shit like right off the bat. Do not expect me to take you in easy on this. But
action movie.
Yeah.
We said it.
The thing about Elite Force Avalon is because American doesn't take any shit from anybody else, pretty much. They do not pull punches. The rest of the world wants Avalon to be at, like, what, a 1, maybe a 3, but they are almost always at an 11 when it comes to just performance standards and everything.
I see.
More so intensely. That's how they always win the Olympics.
Oh my gosh.
Give or take, give or take. Yeah, so Elite Force Avalon in that regard, like the top performing soldiers in Avalon's stronghold, by extension, some of the top performing soldiers worldwide. There are maybe about, I want to say 20, 25 different Elite Force squadrons, and Videl's squadron places #1. Here's the thing, Avalon's sister stronghold, Osaka, called them in to help them deal with a certain kaiju problem that's been on the rise somewhere in the city of Kobe, Japan, so not that far away from where the stronghold is. Basically, they want these guys to come in, help them clean up. If they do this, then they will be paid handsomely, set for life, what have you, early retirement, and all that shit. So they gladly jumped at the chance, and Videl was actually dragged along whether she wanted to go or not. The thing is, during this mission, they didn't find out until it was way too late that Osaka kind of left out a few important details before they actually got to the site of the extermination mission. They found out the hard way that they were not sent on the search and destroy mission. It was more along the lines of a suicide run, so Osaka couldn't analyze what the hell kind of kaiju they were actually dealing with. So in the span of about 2 minutes, this kaiju reared its head, and by the end of it, Videl was the sole survivor of Elite Force Avalon. And unfortunately, they had to find out the hard way that apparently the kaiju can shapeshift.
Which is a problem, because if it's very big and easy to shoot, then that's one thing. But if it's very, not big and can fit in the rotten building you're all in while you're trying to fight it, but can still shoot lasers from its mouth, that's a problem.
Yeah. The kaiju in this universe have the ability to condense their size, their body matter, whatever have you, and essentially blend in with the human population. Mind you, it is a little harder to control their physical forms when they are around other kaiju of similar nature, but mind you, I know a lot of you are gonna say it's kind of like Attack on Titan, but it's really not. We made sure that it wasn't for that matter.
Yeah, nah, it's not Attack on Titan. This is Kaiju. Attack on Titan came later. Kaiju came first. Y'all know who won who in the timeline here. Oh no.
Yeah.
This is Kaiju.
But yeah, so the kaiju can shapeshift, and Videl's entire squad is dead. She's just about ready to throw in the towel and just retire on the spot. However, Killer gives her a backup offer to prevent her from retiring early, saying that if she wants to, now that she is technically speaking the #1 performing soldier not only in North America, but the entire world, if she wants to, she can assemble her own squad from the ground up and pay tribute to her fallen soldiers in that regard. So she readily jumps at the chance, and that is where the story officially starts. And this
so they
is
basically saddled her with the responsibility of rebuilding an elite force, but here instead.
Exactly, and with the least elite people possible for the job.
Everything is fine. They'll do great.
Maybe like individually they're kind of more disaster people, but honestly when they combine forces, they are really something.
They're a good team.
Yeah.
Speaking of teams,
yeah, there's
introduce the last member of it?
Yeah, okay, so I briefly mentioned her, like, during the whole Take-Two, Back from the Dead magical girl SPEEDPAINT, that I really wanted to introduce her, but at the same time, I wanted to save her for her universe of origin, which is this universe in particular. So, everybody, please meet my, nearest and dearest, my sweet bean, my baby, Ryusei Nobunaga. So, Ryusei Nobunaga is a native of the Osaka stronghold, and she has been raised all her life under very strict military-esque standards, particularly by her father in that regard. She has really never known how to do anything besides hone her physical strength, because she's never been introduced to the concept of consideration for mental health, nor has she really known any kind of food out of a strict dietary regimen consisting mostly of fish. Honestly, I'm not even sure how she got by all those years. It's not entirely clear what she used to do for a living before she joined this elite force in progress under Commander Striker. Some people pose the idea that maybe she used to be a contract killer or an assassin, maybe she was a Yakuza for that matter, or, and this seems to be the most favorable rumor, that she used to be the head of the security service for the Prime Minister of Osaka. Now the thing is, Ryusei is drop dead gorgeous, she could crush your skull with her fist.
Her thigh would be great.
Yeah.
Let's aim for that. Let's aim high.
She would have been the new commander of this squad were it not for the fact that, her communication and social skills are incredibly subpar. So it was written in her file, apparently she damaged her throat in some kind of, field mission accident, and she hasn't been able to speak for a good long while. So in the meantime, while she's rehabilitating, she has a handheld text-to-speech communicator that she uses to communicate with her teammates instead. Granted, it does make for its fair share of misunderstandings, but it's more funny than it is frustrating at this point. I mean, she has broken like 9 of them by now, but that's besides the point. She is a fucking force to be reckoned with, and she takes no shit from anybody, but she's kind of like that mysterious, like, secret unlockable character at some point down the line. Well, I guess introduced right off the bat in this case, but
Hime's Gay Awakening.
she is. Wait, what?
She's Hime's Gay Awakening.
By awakening?
True. By awakening. Even so, Ryusei does have a higher KSB than Videl does.
Yeah, or so it was fabricated.
Listen, everything's fine.
Yeah, so Videl has a KBC of 71, whereas Ryusei apparently has a KBC of 97, which is absolutely unspeakable in any stronghold anywhere.
Everything is fine, she's terrifying, and she's buff and beautiful. It's great.
Yeah.
But she's such an asset with that body count that she really can't be dismissed or pushed aside.
Exactly.
But people gotta work together to stay alive, so no solo missions for her, unfortunately.
Yeah.
For no ulterior reason whatsoever. This is not a sign that anything else is going on. Everything is totally fine. Don't worry about it.
With the whole physical aspect of Killer and everything, there do have to be, like, people to keep everything in check, per se. Or, like, it's not all just about being big and buff. You gotta have somebody to manage all of your assets, should something go horribly wrong. There's
Context I can't give you for this without talking, without Raine popping in here a little bit, but the first... Well, okay, let's start with the one who's still part of Killers. So, I have this fun little character. She works as head of logistics for Killer Osaka base. Is Rona Yasuda, daughter to a European-Japanese couple. She was just raised in Stockholm for a while until an engineering accident took the lives of her family. And then eventually, because of that, she had no other family left in that stronghold. She went to the Osaka one to live there. She tried to become part of the military side, but she has tachycardia, which, if for those of you who don't know, is just like her heart just beats so damn fast, it can overwhelm her. It's slightly, I think, swelled. So instead, she just joined the admin decision instead. And Rona's position in Killer is basically that, yes, she works as head of logistics, but she also has a lot of relationships among the organization. And you can basically recognize her because she has this terrifyingly long hair, like floor sweeping long hair. Nobody knows how she takes care of it. It's always in a different hairstyle, but you'll always know Rona because as she passing by, you'll be like, how? Why would you do this? So moving on from my bird brain, who works for Killers, there's nothing up with that whatsoever, is Sorcha, who you'll remember for the Corp 4. And she's actually the socio-cultural anthropologist for something known as the KAIJU project. Whenever Raine pops in, I'll let him explain what that is. She is, along with Ringo McTavish, which you will again remember from the Core 4, and who is a part of Osaka Force 5, which Videl manages and runs. Yeah. She is the daughter of researchers who absolutely got murdered by the hands of a kaiju. While Ringo went into the military, Sorcha decided that for her, it was research. Again, I've discussed a couple times that she has interest in history and archaeology and all those kinds of things, but Sorcha's intelligence is never the result of natural genius. It's always the result of hard work, because that's what she does. That's her thing. She's just too stubborn to fail. As an anthropology and engineering major, because she is a fucking nightmare, along with a part-time job in an auto mechanic shop, she spent all of her years in school just basically going into anthropology, got her master's thesis done, gets to her dissertation, and she's like, hey, the kaiju have a social structure, hierarchy, and culture that we don't know about, and indicating by these studies it should be looked at and observed. And they rejected it on the grounds that it definitely belonged in the field of zoology, which is solely for animals, definitely not anthropology. And Sorcha took issue with that. So, instead of trying to change the topic around or anything, she just dropped out. She got her master's, but she was like, peace out. If you don't believe me, I'm just gonna look for the answers myself. Fucked off to South America. She spent years with basically few results or almost nothing. Only Ringo and a family friend knew she was down there, so that's all the family she has left. Until finally, in the midst of that time, she was approached by someone known as Nathara Price, the head of the Kaiju project that Sorcha would come to join. And with the funds offered and the resources at Nathara's disposal, Sorcha was finally able to advance her research.
Resorcha.
She was able to advance her researcha and ventured off into the jungles of South America. You can assume whatever you wish, but she does get paid for the work she does, so you know there's probably some results there. But at the moment, Sorcha has been called away from her South American post she has spent so long at with the Kaiju project, to instead be moved to Osaka base to work on something known as Project Fenrir. And that is where our story begins.
Well, it would if Raine would ever wake the fuck up.
Yeah, whenever Raine wakes up from his danger nap, you'll figure out what that is, maybe. The reason we have two primary characters each is basically because we're all moving at different angles from this. One is, hey, this is Killers, this is humanity. Another is, hey, this is the cross between Kaiju and humanity in the Kaiju project. Mm-hmm. And from the Kaiju angle, too, not just in one direction where there are Kaiju, but in two directions where there are Kaiju with conflicting interests. And through those 6 primaries we mean for the story, we cover all of those angles through the course of our tale.
Yeah. Well, look who's finally awake!
Whoa, I see you guys tried to start a party without me, and I'm deeply offended.
Bitch! To be fair, you are kind of the party, so.
Thank you.
Yes. So, Raine, kaiju.
Yes.
I'm not gonna lie, I thought you were gonna say bless you for a second.
Bless you.
What do you like about the idea of kaiju?
I like that they're big and they're very scary and they're also monsters. But more importantly...
Riveting.
More importantly, jokes aside, I kind of just like the idea that they kind of explore this idea of just animal mythology, and they are able to turn it into something so modern and intense. I don't know. I just think Godzilla's really cool, you know? I just think he's kind of neat. Or she. I never know the gender of Godzilla. I think it's changed for me like 8 or 9 times. So I'm just like, you know what? They.
It never stops changing, Eric. I've looked it up over the last couple of decades. There's no solid answer. Okay, where the hell did I even leave off? We were talking about like people involved in the Osaka stronghold and shit, and I think we were kind of waiting for you to introduce your boy Merrick.
Yes. Merrick, yes. He's kind of deeply intertwined in another half of the story, kind of, sort of, in a way, yes. The story with Merrick is, or at least his role in this story is, while we have the very action-packed involvement of the soldiers, the story with Merrick in particular is that he is a kaiju. In a sense, he's not fully conscious of it, in the sense that, like, his parents essentially made him into a kaiju. His mother is a scientist who's, like, super involved.
I'm sorry, you said not totally weird. I'm just thinking to myself, his parents never sat him down to have the talk.
They never. Son, in life, we all go through changes.
When a mommy kaiju snake and a daddy kaiju snake love each other very much.
They make a very happy baby kaiju. Except in this situation, there was no mommy snake or daddy snake. Basically, yeah, neither of his parents are kaiju, as far as we know. I mean, who knows, right?
That's all you, my dude.
Yes, but Merrick himself is, and the only reason he predominantly is as a result of his mother's experimentation. She was doing this as a way to genetically alter and improve him and essentially help him. He is a basilisk kaiju.
A not so sneaky snack.
A not so sneaky snack. And I definitely wanted to touch upon the basilisk lore because I thought that was really cool, and I felt like snakes have a lot of versatility. The bright side about Merrick is because he is not naturally a kaiju, as in not genetically. It was something that was done, well, technically genetically, but something that was done through a lab. He can still access parts of his powers while he's in human form. So that is something that he can do, but is not 100% consistent throughout the board. Like, he can still use his venom while he is a human, but he can shapeshift as well. He very much has that ability. His role in this whole story is that he is the person who took up his mother's research. His father is the president of Avalon, whereas his mother is like this top leading scientist who has created like a movement of like peace with the kaiju. So she's very much heavily involved in that, and that's why she's so eager about this research. And her son was meant to be like proof of that, even though no one knows that he is a kaiju apart from his family, and even himself kind of a little bit. So he was relocated to Osaka, that stronghold, to assist with kaiju research because a kaiju was caught in Avalon. But he's brought over to Osaka so that way he can research the kaiju that was caught and also transport it over to Osaka, because Osaka has one of the also leading research bases there.
They called him in to deal with a very hairy situation.
Literally, yes. That other kaiju is a very hairy kaiju.
Yeah.
Also a shapeshifter.
Yeah. And kind of one of the few that we outright stated at the beginning of this whole thing that actually is a shapeshifter, like not so much of a secret.
Oh yeah, no, that one storyline is part, like, from the beginning everyone is already informed. But yeah, so Merrick becomes part of that storyline, researching that particular kaiju, which of course in turn inevitably pulls him in to the loop with everything else that's happening with Videl, right? It's Videl in this story, right?
Yeah.
I forget if it's Videl or Hazel. I always get them mixed up.
It's Videl. Hazel's,
okay.
Hazel's like an NPC in this case.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make 100% sure, because usually whenever...
In this one, Hazel's been reduced to a plot device.
Oh, no. Yeah, that's actually very true.
She's suffered enough in too many AUs. I'm gonna give her a break this time.
Is this one of the few AUs where Ringo's actually with her from the start of the story?
We never outright discussed it, to be honest.
Oh, well then, okay, I thought...
We never set the parameters of that relationship, yeah.
Oh, well, okay, then that is not the case. I lied, just kidding, guys.
It could have been that maybe they were together or some shit, but he went off to join Killers, because now he's Videl's second in command.
Yes, he is, which I also forgot about that. I
love this little introduction bit, though, because Tori feels like Rin abandoned Hazel to join Killers and stuff.
Ooh, which probably isn't a great relationship between them.
I'm so happy with the way I introduced their kind of relationship in chapter 2. Videl's kind of introducing them. McTavish, these are your new recruits. This is Mari, Parker, O'Hara, Ryusei, you son of a bitch, and Thane.
Ren's gonna be like, wow, this is just a great start to the day.
Yeah.
Just another day on the job.
Tori fucking hates Rory, but I don't know what Rory's feelings are, so.
Rory's just like 100% anger in this particular AU. I mean, like, when is he not? But his situation is he's just pissed off indefinitely about things that are happening around. He consistently holds a lot of blame against the kaiju. Definitely very, very, very much anti-kaiju. He looks at kaiju and says, "This is not okie dokie."
So he just thinks that they're all fucking monsters. Like, he doesn't think that they can be people too, per se.
Essentially, he basically is the opposite of what Merrick's mother was trying to emphasize to the world. He believes that they should actually be stopped and gotten rid of because they've already caused so much destruction as it is that it's basically irredeemable.
You know, about 5.3 billion lives lost and everything, but still.
Exactly, basically the entire world population for the most part.
The goodness in his case is that it's very much a shared sentiment by the entire world almost, so.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, Rory's definitely not alone in believing this.
I'm so curious what's gonna happen if the day ever comes where he actually finds out that some people in their midst are actually kaiju.
Oh yeah, no, that's definitely not, he's not gonna be happy.
That's not okie dokie.
He will not be okie dokie. He's gonna be very non-okie dokie. Did you tell the wonderful audience that V and Ryusei are lesbiabs for each other?
I actually never elaborated on that, but thank you for bringing that up. So yes, Ryusei is a lesbian and Videl is demisexual, which means doesn't feel feelings unless it's like a very deep emotional connection with somebody.
Ooh, yes.
No, Ryusei is a chaotic lesbian, if you were wondering.
Oh, I wasn't wondering. I know. I have seen firsthand.
Yeah, she's firsthand.
I have watched it unfold before my very eyes and thought, wow.
She is a lesbian. She just sucks at handling her feelings or trying to properly express them. I think at some point it was like, Videl was trying to prove a point to her squad that, like, don't question her authority because she will absolutely deck you. And she's like, if anybody else has a problem, by all means, step up to the plate, hit me with your best shot. Ryusei takes that too literally and actually punches her in the face.
Oh no, I mean...
It's beautiful.
If you play with fire, you're gonna get burnt.
Yeah.
Enough said on that.
V's fine. She just needs some painkillers and an ice pack for her black eye, but still, it's a core bonding moment.
I'm actually very surprised it's only a black eye that came out of that scenario.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah, no, they're great, but yeah, no, Ryusei isn't the only problem child on the base. The other one happens to be one of Raine's actual kaiju people. Raine, you want to like explain Mr. Wolfman's?
All right, so hopping back into what we're talking about.
So who is this hairy son of a bitch?
This hairy son of a bitch is not Harry Potter. It is, well, okay, it's codename Fenrir. I just refer to him as Fenrir for the time being. That's not his actual name. Everyone calls him Fenrir because that's the project that he's under. He is, as you may have guessed, probably by the name, a wolf kaiju. He does transform to and from a wolf.
Yeah, little fun fact actually is that the whole like Wolfman kaiju was actually taken from the concept for a kaiju movie that actually like it started production but actually never came out back in like 1972. It was like a I think it was like Wolfman versus Godzilla or some shit, but it was like an actual kaiju design that never really took off.
Yes, which is actually very interesting that they never decided to do anything with that, because I mean, not to say, I mean the graphics at the time made sense, but not to say that probably would have been a very convincing looking Wolfman by our current standards. But it still would have been worthwhile of a watch, and I'm sure it would have been very interesting.
Yeah, there's like references to all the old Godzilla movies just scattered throughout like all of these things in this world, this universe.
Oh yeah, no, 100%.
Nice little homages.
Exactly, and I think that was worthy of being touched upon a little bit. Except this particular kaiju does not take the form of like a wolf man per se. He actually just becomes like a legitimate giant wolf.
Which kind of goes back to his name, because Fenrir is actually the name of like a giant wolf from Norse mythology who was like responsible for some of the destruction that happened during Ragnarok. So it works nicely.
100%, yes. He is the big doggo, and he is actually a kaiju that was captured in what we currently know as Canada. So he is, by our standards, a Canadian fellow.
Yay!
But by
Best
his
fellow.
stories, he is Avalonian?
Yeah, that works.
Avalonian, yes.
Yeah.
Of Avalon.
Avalon's stronghold has like outpost colonies around the United States / North America per se. Like they've got one in Mexico City, one in Houston, Atlanta, Washington DC. They've actually got one up in Toronto, which is like I think where his influence is carried most off.
Yes, he's kind of in that area, yes. And so that is where he was captured. He was brought to Toronto, brought again further into the strongholds that would be in our current United States.
Yep.
Before being transferred over to Osaka under the guidance of Merrick. So Merrick has already essentially been very familiar with this case because he saw the news when this was all happening, or heard the news. So he asked to be on the case, was put on the case by his mother, and he was sent over to Osaka. And
then they made out.
Yeah, that's the other part of this. This is
my, how the turntables.
How the turntables have table turned. So this is a situation where Merrick does actually end up falling for the patient. In this situation, or I guess the subject, or I don't know, but obviously to him that's not what Fenrir is. Fenrir is obviously an actual, a person, a human being, someone that he can relate to, and they are able to communicate with one another, and he ends up actually feeling extremely sympathetic for this person because obviously he's in captivity with like 100,000 needles being prodded into him every single day.
Ow.
And he has no sense of freedom anymore. And also the reason that he was captured to begin with is because, and I'm talking about Fenrir, is because Fenrir's younger brother, also a kaiju shapeshifter back in Avalon, was actually murdered, which is what triggered Fenrir to begin with and ended up inevitably getting him captured. So there's just a lot that's going on in Fenrir's background, but he is the first ever live kaiju to have been captured in full proper health, enough for them to be able to study, which is why this is such a sensitive and delicate subject, and why Merrick was so insistent on being put on this case as well, because he's actually studied all of this and his mother's research, and so obviously it would make him eligible to study this.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I guess that's the story of them so far.
Yeah.
Very preliminary story.
Yeah, no, you got it.
And they are also disasters.
Yeah, what do they identify as?
Merrick is bi, would be considered bisexual. And I think the best way for me to describe Fenrir would be pansexual.
Damn it.
Huh?
I was ready to lean back and go, ha, gay!
Oh, no,
I was ready.
No. Fenrir is a dog that likes all kinds of food.
Oh my god.
What's the most PG way of putting all of this? They both have their moments where they are more vulnerable, and other moments where they are more like empowered and just
hot damn. Oh yeah, this is like based on what Swine I discussed the other week that you could probably get some 2 cents in on, but I'm sure there's like a glaring problem that most of the audience is thinking like, okay, so Fenrir's in captivity, but how do they keep him from like fully transforming into like Big Doggo and wrecking all their shit? And the answer to that is actually, thanks to Twi for that matter, is over time, some of the shapeshifting kaiju who have blended in with human society have actually developed a shapeshifting suppressant medication, if you will. Something to kind of like keep them in check and prevent them from accidentally activating the shift or swaying under the influence of like imbalanced hormones or just like, adrenaline rushes, that kind of thing.
Also, I think there are different variations of this medication, if I'm not mistaken, at least in my conversation with Twi as well. I think she told me that there's a specific one that the kaiju themselves use that is not accessible to humans. Like humans don't know it exists, essentially.
Yeah.
Well, in this situation also, with at least in Fenrir's situation predominantly as well, most of the time he's kept sedated. Mind you, not by Merrick. I just want to make sure that that's clear from the very beginning. That is something that, which is actually something that Merrick is very very against, because he's working against the other doctors. I should probably explain this. There's a big schism between, or schism? The big divide.
Whatever.
Yes.
Whatever.
There's a big divide between the doctors from Avalon and the doctors from Osaka. Most of the doctors from Avalon are following Merrick's lead, and Merrick is very much anti
drugs.
Yeah, essentially, in a sense. He does not, I guess he understands the need for restraint in this situation, but more than anything, he ends up wanting to just free Fenrir, and, absolutely hates that they just keep sedating Fenrir over and over and over again.
Yeah.
We have the Osaka doctors, which they can't really do too much to Fenrir because Fenrir is technically considered property of Avalon. Also, Merrick is there as a diplomat because he is the son of the president of Avalon, so of course, obviously...
Yeah.
It's going to create a lot of issues if they just do. So it's a very delicate situation. But yes, in this situation, Fenrir is usually kept sedated, and they do whatever they can to make sure he does not just shapeshift randomly. And any instances where he has is predominantly because Merrick had a hand in taking him either out or doing something that allows him some measure of freedom that ends up making Fenrir just go wild.
The shapeshifting suppressant medication isn't forced upon every single kaiju in the stronghold. It's just it's only mandatory for the problem children that they tend to identify. Not to call anybody out or anything, but just if they know that these people are considered technically to be problems and they need a little bit of help, just trying to blend in and everything. Just up here, hello, I am person, I am normal, how are you? Then yeah, they'll have to give them some form of the medication, of course.
Exactly.
And by the way, I know that kaiju and human anatomy are not synonymous or anything, but it is very much possible to actually overdose on this medication. If for some reason a kaiju who can shapeshift actually decides they want to be more human and absolutely want to just eliminate the ability to shapeshift completely, then yeah, they could easily overdose on it.
And that would not be okie dokie. That would create a very bad situation.
But also lots of juicy drama.
Yes. Oh. And I have not yet discovered or thought about mentally what would happen if Merrick were to take that. He was not naturally...
Oh.
Well, he was... Yes.
Yeah, he had gene therapy done on him, right?
Yeah, that was the kaiju genetics essentially was something that was introduced to him rather than he was just born with it naturally through natural means.
I feel like the people who make the medication would at least have some kind of contact with Merrick's mom to find some way to make a variant that wouldn't be what's the word I'm looking for? As negatively effective on him.
What happened, and I did discuss this part with Spy, what happened with Merrick's mother is that she was actually close to replicating that medication. But something similar, but a little different.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Before she was able to complete it, it was stolen from her. So that research was what was redirected into her soon-to-be child, implanted into him instead of them creating. So America's the result of the fact that the research was stolen from her. There's just a lot that goes into it, but yes, I love the idea of this. There's actually so much to it as well.
There really is.
I also want to ask a question too, because I know that this applies for some people. Lifespan.
Oh. Well, that really just varies from species to species of different kaiju, to be honest. Back then, it was they could easily live for thousands, maybe even over 1 million years, depending on the species, because I actually have heard that Godzilla is over 1 million years old.
Oh my gosh, that's a while.
Yeah, I mean, I had to do some research, but yeah, the narrative for all the other movies and lore and shit say that kaiju have been around almost forever, since the dinosaurs. Oh wait, that's right. I read a thing somewhere where Godzilla's the only dinosaur-looking thing who actually survived the meteor that wiped them out.
Oh my god! Well, that actually explains so much more.
I know, right? What's hard to explain is why people haven't seen any signs of Godzilla for the last 15 years.
Godzilla really said, "You're not gonna clap these cheeks." She said that to the meteor. Sorry, I'll stop that right now.
You're fine. You think we covered enough, or?
Yeah, I think we have basically knocked out everything, I think, as far as I know. I mean,
woo!
I guess my only other character is Ringo, but he doesn't really seem to, as of right now, apart from what the short bit that I've added. I haven't fleshed him out 100% either.
He's got... Wait, what short... There is no short bit!
That's also technically true.
Well, would you look at that? This blasted poster is finally complete. Holy shit! And I think now's as good a time as any to share the good news with you guys. Last week, I got the all clear from Raine and Twy to turn the first chapter of Killers into a webtoon comic, so I'm gonna be working on that between videos this year. But in the meantime, if you guys want to see the works in progress, the concept art, the sweet deets on everything to do with Killers, the story, and its characters, then I will be sharing those on my $10 Patreon tier. I won't be sharing these things anywhere else until I officially release a chapter, so consider this your chance to say, I was here before it was cool. But that's gonna do it for this episode of Imagine with Max. Thank you guys for watching, and if you made it through the whole thing, then congratulations! You've earned a cookie. But anyways, look forward to more videos like this in the not so distant future, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye!